right, everyone, this is a three-part series on oak trees, results in the island, and some things that I've done to get a few of these results. I've been up here with binoculars today doing nut scouting, not deer scouting, nut scouting, trying to determine how my crop's going to look this year. And I'm telling you right now, it is a massive year for acorns. Results vary depending on your location, and the only way to know if your results are different than mine, get out there and look around now while the oak nuts are just now falling out of the trees, or in some cases really bending some limbs. If you see that, you better be ear to ear smiles. I'm going to cover several things in this video and videos, so let's get into this. All right, so there's a few things here. I want to start from the beginning. Before the island was ever worked on, it looked a lot like this area here. A lot of trees. There was nothing green growing under here. It was actually all dead, so it kind of looked like this area over the whole island. The canopy was so congested that there was just not hardly any sunlight reaching the ground. There was only maybe one or two little vines that had some growth come out of the ground, but the deer eat them off as soon as they come up, and it was done. So the problem was there was a lack of food in this island. I had no deer traffic in here. It was so rare if I ever even saw a deer attempt to cross this. Most of the time, or actually all the time, they would either loop around the neighbor's property, come out low, go to the food plot, loop around this way, or come down the ridge, it didn't matter, cross the road, and they would all head around and go to the food plot that way. There was just a big fork in the road where there was just nothing happening right here. The only time before I did this project, I saw a total of 4 deer hunting here 10 years in this island. 4 deer. And they were basically running away from a buck because they were just trying to find a shortcut to get out, and they tried to use this to losing. And that's it. I mean, that is pathetic. So I did a evaluation for several years where I was evaluating why deer were not in here. It came down to looking at food sources, how much food was available in here, and basically I got a big fat 0. The last year before I made the island project, I found 5 acorns laying on the ground over there by that 4-wheeler. That is so sad. Now, I'm not counting these big trees. They've always produced, and deer would travel this way. That'd be about as close as they would get to the island. So that is a major problem that I have addressed. Now, when I created the island, I had goals in mind. Initially, I wanted this to be a native species hub, a 1/4 acre section full of natives, but due to Mom wanting a food plot in here for her hunting, I had to do basically a combination of natives and mostly a standard food plot that everybody is accustomed to seeing. But when I started cutting these trees down, go back and review the videos. I talk about marking trees, goals, why I want these trees left. There's many valuable tips of information. And when I do these projects, this is not something that can instantly show up in your results basket, let's just say. This is a long-term project, and now it's in its 2nd year, and let's start going over what has happened in a span of 2 growing seasons. So the first year I did this, I cut all this out, opened up the canopy. The first result that I saw was the oak trees grew faster. Maybe roughly, they started growing about 1 foot tall a year, maybe a couple feet wide a year. This year, they have grown 2 feet tall and 4 feet wide. And now when it comes to nut production, has anything changed in this island? The answer is an astounding yes. Last year, I found roughly, now this is just eyeballing, I didn't physically sit there and count every nut, but I found roughly 200 white oak nuts by that four-wheeler between 2 white oaks that started to produce. None of these other oaks have ever made a single acorn on the island. And of course, last year was it was basically a hit and miss scenario with the oak crop. That tree didn't produce. This tree made a handful. That tree did pretty good. You know, it just depends on what the frost damaged last year. This time, we're in our second growing cycle. We didn't have any frost. The new scenarios in 2 years is obviously more space, more sunlight, and boron. I will get into that in another video, but I'm going to leave it right there. Let's get into some good and bad over here in the corner. All right, so this tree has never produced a single acorn. This tree has never produced. None of these oaks in here have ever made a single nut. They're all fairly young trees. Now, this is part of the deception of the woods, but both of these trees are in the neighborhood of 30 years old. That is plenty old enough for a tree to produce. So let's go back to the conditions that this tree was in right here. There was absolutely no way that tree was going to start producing anytime soon, because there was a tall poplar tree that was growing right here, and it was at least 5 to maybe 6 feet taller than what this white oak was. The poplar tree had taken over a vast swath of the sunlight. This tree has been bottlenecked its whole life, has a very, you know, this is the beanpole scenario where you get a long skinny trunk with a bunch of short little leaves and limbs right here, and then you get this little miniature top. That is a classic bottleneck tree, and every oak tree in here had that problem. This tree had a little bit more space than the others, and that's why it's a little fatter. But there's also a problem I'm seeing with this tree. I think that this oak tree is starting to die. I believe it has contracted some sort of disease, and when I was clearing out all the trees, I had buffer zones around these trees, so I did not scar the trees when I was dragging them out. But somehow this tree has started showing stress cracks. Now they've healed over, but it's also got rotted holes popping up in it. It could be that carpenter ants have gotten in here and done damage, and that's going to allow, yeah, matter of fact, I think I just got my answer. Look at that carpenter ants right there. So this tree probably has carpenter ants in it, devouring it from the inside out, and whatever holes that they've made has turned into rotting cracks and stress cracks. That right there, that is all dead. I can mash that. So this tree is in serious trouble. But this year it managed to produce acorns. Not a lot, but they are in here. I would say roughly, oh, now these are all estimations. I'm not physically counting nuts in the tree, but there's probably anywhere from 50 to 100 nuts in the tree. That is a big improvement compared to 5 nuts when I started year 1. Now, it's not the same as year 2 when I found at least 200 over there. However, this tree is also producing. So now I have 2 trees on the corner that are producing acorns. And obviously I did my scouting, and there are several hundred nuts in this tree. I would say anywhere from 1 to 200 nuts has occurred in this tall, skinny tree. Now, as small as this tree is, That is a fantastic start to this tree's first time ever producing. This tree, on the other hand, has a slower start. Growth rates have declined. The other trees have taken off. This is the only oak that is expressing issues. So there is a good chance, even though it has produced finally, that I may end up cutting this tree down. So in future updates somewhere down the road, this tree will probably be gone. Now I'm going to stop the video here, and then I'm going to move around to the other oaks, do examples of sunlight, which ones have done the best, and some incredible changes on some of these trees. Also, I'm going to update you on the big one from earlier this year. So hang on tight for part 2.